Hi, and welcome back to FDT4, Diversity and Inclusion, specifically the comparative research paper that you're writing as part of task number 2. I'm Carl Swenson, and along with Janae Reiser, we are the course mentors for FDT4. Um, as you remember, in the first part of this three-part presentation, we talked a little bit about what the competencies were and the objectives were for this task, and also how you're going to go about beginning to do the research that's necessary. So, in this, the second of 3 presentations, what I'd like to do is to take you through the first 4 sections of this 8 section requirement. It's really kind of important to follow in order on these sections because it's the only way that the task really makes sense for you. It can become very complex and overwhelming. So strongly recommend that you follow along here and move in this direction. So, last time when we talked, as I said, we talked about the competencies and the objectives, and we began to talk a little bit about doing the research. Now we're going to look specifically at sections A, B, C, and D in an effort to get a really good, strong start on this, so that you can complete this within a reasonable amount of time, and then move on to other things within this course of study or within your degree program. So, as we look then at section A, and I remind you that sections A and B are really kind of your scratch paper for this task, and as such, we don't really need to turn in sections A and B, but they do serve a very important purpose, and that is to focus our research so that we can have some meaningful work being done here. Section A requires that we write a statement of purpose. Sometimes it's referred to as a thesis statement, but basically it's always the same thing. This is a statement really very simply saying, I want to study these 2 cultures because. And in doing that, then it really narrows in what our focus is going to be. So, an example here for you in my in a previous life, I was able to travel on a great deal of the world and spent time in Ukraine and also in Austria. And when I was in the Ukraine, I was just captivated by the Carpathian Mountains and the people that lived around there. And likewise, when I was in Austria, I was just absolutely amazed with the opportunity I had to visit an underground a salt mine that was literally burrowed into the base of the mountain, about 1,500 feet, or I'm sorry, 1,500 meters below the surface. And I really became interested. So if I were going to study those 2 cultures, Ukrainian mountain climbers and Austrian salt miners, I might develop a statement of purpose like this. The importance of why, I'm saying 2 things here. What I want to study and the importance of it to me. So you can see how that works together. As you know, I said that this was scratch paper, but even so, we're going to include this statement of purpose in our paper. It actually will go into section D. So make it a good one. Make it a good one. In section B, we talked briefly last time we met about the difference between primary sources and secondary sources. This actually gives you a listing of what we need to put together as far as those sources go. We need a total of 6 primary sources, and as I mentioned before, one must be an internet source, and one must be a government website. So in essence, we're requiring you to have a minimum of 2 internet sources here. One's just a regular internet website, and the other will be a government website. They're very specific with the government website. And the other 4 primary sources can be anything that you want them to be. They can come from the internet, they can come from print, they can come from just about anything that you want. Secondary sources, you're going to need a total of 4. You'll need 2 for each of our 2 cultures. And when we talk about non-internet sources, we're basically saying that there's an implied requirement that you visit a brick and mortar library. So in that visit to a brick and mortar library, try to find some secondary sources, some sources put together, created by, authored by information gatherers, so that you can meet this requirement. And what I'd like you to do on your reference page, which is way down the road, but I want you to have this in mind. You notice down here at the bottom of this slide, we have a reference to a textbook called Multicultural Education in a Pluralistic Society. And you notice that at the end of it, in red font here, inside of brackets, I've put that this will be a secondary source, and then I'm going to put what culture it applies to. And that allows us to very quickly count up and make sure that we have the right ones. We talk about this being a comparative paper. Well, the problem that we have with comparative papers is that we really need to figure out how we're going to compare something. For the purposes of this project, it's really kind of difficult if we're going to compare, as I mentioned in the previous presentation, the young lady that wanted to focus on the Amish community and white-tailed deer hunters. Those are 2 pretty distant focuses if you really take a look at that. So we have to have some way of being able to identify and to figure out how we're going to level the ground so that we can accurately compare these. And we do that by picking themes that are common to both cultures. And once we do that, then we actually can compare them. For instance, you've often heard, you can't compare apples and oranges. Well, actually, you can compare apples and oranges. If you think of the common theme of shape, or the common theme of peel or covering, or the common theme of seeds or seedless, if you think of the common theme of sweet or sour, there are all sorts of themes with which we can compare apples and oranges. Peanuts and pencils, we can even compare them. Most pencils are made of biodegradable materials, as are peanuts. We could talk about that. You can actually write with a peanut. It's kind of difficult, but you could actually write with a peanut. So as well as with a pencil. So you see, there are ways that we can compare these 2, even though we might think that we might not be able to. So here's where we kind of get into our comparison. We talk about section C here, the creation of an outline or concept map for each culture. And in these concept maps or outlines is where we find our 3 themes common to both cultures. Now, what kind of themes are we talking about here? Well, it could be a whole number of things. Maybe you want to talk about family structure, or maybe you want to talk about the importance of foods within a particular culture, or maybe you want to talk about the importance of arts and entertainment within a particular culture, or maybe educational aspirations, or just about anything that you're really interested in here. It just has to be common to both cultures. That's the key to this. So as you begin to build your outlines or your concept maps, then what you're going to do is you're going to list the culture and then the 3 themes. And then within each of those 3 themes, there are going to be areas of interest. And those areas of interest are the actual things that your research is going to go to. If I were to develop a concept map for my Ukrainian mountain climbers, it might look like this. I might be interested in what what their favorite movies are. What movies do they like to watch the most? And I might be interested in what their favorite pets are. What pets do most Ukrainian mountain climbers like to have? And then finally, forms of transportation. How do they get from one place to another? I'm thinking that Ukrainian mountain climbers, because they're mountain climbers, might like movies that have to do with mountain climbing. And so I found that these three movies, Vertical Limit, Third Man on the Mountain, and Cliffhanger, may very well be their favorite ones. So I'm going to research those. Favorite pets? I'm a little bit at a loss right now, so I've got to do some pre-research, if you will, and find out. But I believe that a yak might be one of their favorite pets. And as far as forms of transportation, I do know that mountain climbers use rope a lot in climbing and in descending from the mountain. So rope might be a form of transportation. And that we may find some others as we begin to do our research. But you can see here that we have our themes that are common to both cultures, both the Ukrainian mountain climbers and, in my case, the Austrian salt miners. Um, so these themes, the ones that are depicted in the kind of rose color here, those are going to be the same in both of my concept maps. However, the areas of interest represented by the six-sided figures will probably not be the same for both cultures. So we have to have these concept maps put together and in a way that we can read them. If you want to go the old school way and do an outline, that's fine. Just list the culture, list the themes, list the sub areas, just as you would in a normal outline. The requirement is that you have either an outline for both cultures or that you have a concept map for both cultures. So you're going to have two outlines or you're going to have two concept maps. Now, that brings us to section D, which is the first writing that we're actually going to do. You remember way back in section A, we talked about statement of purpose. Well, here's where we're actually going to see it embedded in your paper. So as this section D, starts out, I want you to start with that statement of purpose. You're leading off your paper by telling us exactly what you're going to study and why. And then from there, I'd like you to move on to a description of the two cultures, talk briefly about the two cultures, and then talk briefly about the common themes that you're looking at, and then talk briefly about the areas of interest and the concepts that you're going to be doing your research on. So basically what I'm saying here is take that concept map or those outlines and put them into words, and that becomes the introduction. If you think about it this way, this is kind of a teaser, if you will, or a precursor for the reader so that the reader knows exactly where this paper is going. And after reading the introduction, we'll know what to expect on down the line. And that's going to be it for sections A, B, C, and D. So begin to work on those. I'd like to see you develop your concept maps. If you'd like either Janae or me to take a look at your concept maps and make sure that we're all headed in the right direction here, feel free to drop them to us in an email. Our common email address is diversity@wgu.edu. That's DIVERSITY at wgu.edu. We'll be happy to take a look at it and send it back to you with our ideas and our suggestions, and of course our praise when you've done it very well. Then I would like, after you've done your concept maps, I'd like you to go ahead and put together section D and write it out. And then when we come back together for the third and final installment of this presentation, we will talk about sections E, F, G, and H, which will be the body of your paper, and we'll get it completed and turned into TaskStream and get you on your way. Thanks very much. It's been pleasant, and I'll talk to you again soon in the third presentation. Bye for now.